give me a minute to fan out. I gotta get a picture because they won't believe that DC showed up for the civil healing. Tell me that we can't heal our people, heal that ground divide. God bless you, wonderful, beautiful people. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm going to be speaking with my notes this evening, not because I don't have it all in me, but I want to make sure we get some of this factual data down. Tonight we came to take care of business, and I so appreciate you all. First and foremost, I want to introduce myself formally. I'm Dr. Rondell Hamilton. I am the president of the Healthy DC and Me Leadership Coalition, as well as the executive who am I? The executive director for MI Mothers Keeper Mental Health Outreach Advocates. Many of you in the room on the ground know me. It's just simply Rhonda. We are here to talk about the civil and human rights of many of the citizens that live in your communities. I'm so honored, and I know I'm going to miss a few introductions, but I want to make sure to recognize my beautiful, beautiful leaders on the ground in the house. Ms. Barbara Cooper from Marbury County, president of the County. My wonderful ETAP family, they represent the I want to also recognize the representation of our wonderful CEO of the Whistleblowers Film Festival and Summit from the federal level. Each year they host a summit on Capitol Hill, and this year will be no different, and yours truly has been asked to assemble a community level panelists to come forward and help folks on the Hill and beyond to understand these issues that we have on the local level that are certainly representative of whistleblower understandings. So welcome to our whistleblower representation. I want to recognize Brother Tate. Brother Tate's with Cruz. Okay, Cruz. Citizens representing everyone here tonight. Very excited. I also want to keep the applause going for Chaplain Jules Christian with the Volunteers of America, Chesapeake and Carolina. We recently completed a gun violence colloquium event with them over in the at the Metropolitan Church of Washington, D.C. It was very powerful and very moving. So thank you, Chaplain Jules. Want to keep it going. I see Janine is in the house representing the tenant liaison for the Wingate apartment community. Welcome. And please forgive me if I don't catch all your faces. I see Miss Bryson is in the house. Thank you so very much on the ground with the 2022 campaign of Dr. Rhonda L. Hamilton. I want to recognize Juanita Briscoe in the house, Ms. Phyllis Carr, Ms. Christine Chick, and Ms. Anthony Henderson in the house representing my family, and also the Rhonda Hamilton for Mayor 2022 campaign. Why is that important? I need you guys to understand, before anything, I've been an advocate. I'm a mental health advocate, and there's far too much going on the ground. In 2022, we saw that the divide was so great that we had to do something about that. And so we threw our hat in the ring for one reason and one reason only, and that was to show up to serve this current mayor notice that the community's voice has arrived. So I will keep you all abreast, and we will continue to stay in touch about matters moving forward for the 2026 election season. But right now, I am your mental health advocate, and there are issues on the ground that connect us. I want you guys to understand that every elected official, every candidate running for office, as well as our police department representatives and many of our civil rights organizations were sent an invitation for tonight's meeting. If you want to understand the representation of why it was important for us to call this meeting, I want you to understand that our panel should be overflowing because civil and human rights of our citizens and the conditions upon which they're living should not be taken lightly. And much of what we've been dealing with for the last 8 years on the ground is representative of them believing that they can continue to ignore the issues of so many deserving citizens. So please once again give yourselves a wonderful round of applause. I want to take a minute to recognize some very busy souls, some very loyal souls in the room. To my rear, Bishop Gray is standing. He is an integral part of the leadership coalition. To get the work done and was on that ground paving, putting signs up and doing things that are necessary. He's always in the background, but today I want to bring him to the foreground because he is my rock. He represents the Agape Men's Ministry, and I thank you, Bishop Gray. In the very far rear is Overseer Cole. He's my right hand. Thank you, man, for all that you do. To my forefront here, I've got my coalition partner and advisor, Mr. Perry Red, CEO of Sincere 7. Been on the ground over 20 plus years for workers' rights, and you're going to hear from him soon. He and I will serve as moderators this evening. And I want to thank my beautiful panel members. I will give Mr. Robert White's team a shout out. They're getting their act together in the last few moments because they didn't take us seriously. Told us he couldn't be here, but when they got here and saw you here, calls got made. So we will patiently look to see him show up, and we will give him our attention as well. No one is safe this evening. Let's all right. Without any further ado, I wanted you guys to recognize our two panelists this evening that are here already, and that would be Dr. Edwin Chapman, who has served over 4+ decades over in Ward 7. He is the senior advisor for the Healthy DCME Leadership Coalition. Among other titles, Mr. Chapman is our drug czar in terms of helping us to understand the fentanyl opioid and the reality of its connection to the downfall of so many of our citizens in the city. So please do give him a round of applause. Dr. Waldron is in the house from MedStar, and I would be remiss if I did not recognize Dr. Waldron. I want you guys to know that we've got some powerhouses in the house this evening. Representing our EAS Carpenters Union, and a very dear friend is Mr. Kunta Bedney, who is here because he understands the importance of the real job, sustainable career opportunities they do for our community members, many who represent a part of the chronic population. Thank you, Mr. Bedney, for being here this evening. And I'm going to be very transparent. I asked Mr. Bedney to sit here because as you look at the headline, listen to the headlines on the news or read it in the paper, and they talk about jobs in this crime bill and what they're going to do, I want you to know that Mr. Bedney was told by one of our dear council members that they don't believe in the union. So would you please help me to understand how we're supposed to find life-changing opportunities for our failing and yelling community members if we don't invite all resources to the table? Please again welcome Mr. Bedney. Guys, I also want to thank our supporting sponsor, the AHSO Super PAC, which is supporting the message of advancing healthier societal outcomes. Everything we speak from as mental health advocates and otherwise is to intentionally impact the outcomes for our community members. And right now there are far too many that don't have healthy access to impactful outcomes. And so thank you again for attending tonight's meeting. Mr. Kenny Barnes has just entered the building, Fargo Go-Go, and I want to recognize him. Please give him a round of applause.
Beside Mr. Waldron. Let me get by you real quick. Let him get by you.
All right, here we go with these notes, and let's move on. Guys, I want you to know that we appreciate you guys showing up for what will be the start of what we believe will be our new journey together as a city and as the capital of the nation. I think all too often we get so caught up in the headlines that we don't realize we are truly supposed to be the representation of the nation and we're feeling right now. But today before you, I invite you, I summons you to stay at the table so that we can go forward together as one, respecting the needs of all DC citizens, and most importantly, setting higher standards, because the standards are far too low in our living, in our housing, and in our economic representations. We want to set standards that will positively impact our seniors, our children, ourselves, our communities, and our well-being. Today we make a plan and dare that any elected official or head of agency in this town, as of their receipt of your petitions from today moving forward, ignores your right to gaining access to cleaner, safer, affordable, and legal housing, sustainable jobs, pathways to documented economic relief in healthcare services that improves your living. No more lower standards.
No.
Right, that's right.
Today we build a network of community oversights with a pipeline to their offices, to the press, that says no more will we watch you ignore the needs of all of DC's people.
Right.
No more will you mismanage the money that is meant for us and then claim to not have enough money to help save us. Guys, I'm trying to read from these notes because most of you know how emotional I can get. And then they claim not to have enough money to save us. No more. Today we fight for the restoration of our civil and human rights. Today we come forward to take back DC.
Yes.
Today we set higher standards and force them to recognize our power as the people of DC. Before I get into helping you to understand what civil rights are, you guys have handouts that you received at the front. And it's going to help you to follow along with everything we speak of this evening. We don't take for granted that you would automatically assume what your civil and human rights are because you've been dealing with what they've been offering you for so long. There are so many that are afraid to speak and so many that would have been here this evening, but they are afraid that they would be retaliated against.
Yeah.
So they send their representatives in to go check and see if the way is clear. Well, I want you to know the way is visibly clear, and we move forward together as one so that they don't get to single out any one community, any one citizen, so that they can send a message that you must stay quiet. No more. Those are standards that we will reverse. I want you to also understand as you leave here this evening that Mr. Phil Mendelson, the chair of the DC Council, Mr. Brian Swab, the elected legal official, the highest legal official for underserved and low-income families, the person that DOB turns over these slumlord cases to that they just can't enforce. He is the single head person that's supposed to come forward and offer you guys the type of legal understandings that you deserve when you're living with mold for elongated periods, when you're living with rat feces and raising children, when you're living during a pandemic with stairwells falling and dirty buildings and leaking ceilings and wood floors that would crumble. He is the person that's supposed to come and answer for the trap houses that you have to live next to, help to navigate resources to help our troubled youth. Because let's be clear, we're not going to get out of this by locking our youth up.
That's right.
No. That's right.
So I want you to know that Mr. Phil Mendelson and Mr. Brian Swab, after 5 months of chasing them with the wonderful tenants of Marbury Plaza, Wingate, Woodbury Village, Nash Place, Chesapeake Street, with all those wonderful community representations at the table that started back in November, he promised he would deliver Mr. Brian Swab to a public meeting setting such as this so we can help them to understand that spending district taxpayers' fundings in monies for social justice departments and individuals where there is no social justice for many of the families. It's a waste of the money. So we thought we'd give them an opportunity to show up in a setting such as this to be further educated by you all. And he chose not to, but what they did do after 5 months of chasing is to call our tenant association president at Marbury Plaza to say that they want to show up to the property on June 1st. How does them showing up at Marbury Plaza help Wingate? How does him showing up at Marbury Plaza help Triangle View or any of our communities in the ETAP circle? We've got to help them to understand that we no longer intend to conform by the standards they set, but that they will conform by the standards that we demand. What are civil rights, you ask? Civil rights are personal rights guaranteed and protected by the U.S. Constitution and federal laws enacted by Congress, such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Americans Disability Act of 1990. Civil rights includes protection from unlawful discrimination. The Health and Human Service Office for Civil Rights enforces civil rights laws that prohibit discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, disability, age, religion, and sex, including pregnancy, sexual orientation, and gender identity by certain healthcare and human services entities. I want you to understand, I don't intend to sit here and read all this for you this evening, but it was important for me to make the point that you are in the right meeting.
That's right.
What are human rights? Every person has dignity and value. One of the ways that we recognize the fundamental worth of every person is by acknowledging and respecting their human rights. Human rights are a set of principles concerned with equality and fairness. They recognize our freedom to make choices about our lives and to develop our potential as human beings. They are about living a life free from fear, harassment, and discrimination. Let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about the history of D.C. Let's talk about the nation's seat of governance, the District of Columbia, which has been divided by race, income, and job opportunities. This divide has further been perpetuated by institutionalized racism and economic corporate enslavement practices that have to date contributed to an unfair distribution of wealth, living, and health care inequalities. You see, statistically, Washington, D.C.'s youth poverty rates are higher than the national average. D.C. houses a 98% potent fentanyl on the street, along with other opioid drugs and the new drugs out. Have you heard of trank? Flesh eating. Second highest per capita overdose rate in the country. Our dear Dr. Chapman is going to share some more with you about that. We have approximately 3 times the national rate for HIV cases. We are ranked number 4 in human trafficking. We have disproportionately rising homicide rates, but watch this. Everywhere we read, crime is down, right? I haven't seen more guns go off since the crime bill been signed. Haven't seen more guns go off across the city since then. But they say that the crime rates are down. Poverty and social distress are also inhumanely too high. Did you know that in Ward 7 alone, D.C. families dealing with kidney disease represent at least 44% higher than the national projected average of families dying from and dealing with kidney disease? The eastern region of the nation's capital consistently has low graduation rates, yet we have a two-headed snake in our education system. Public charter school, DC public schools, and still we can't manage to graduate youth of color to higher advanced understandings. Urban Institute has reported that white households in DC have a net worth of approximately 81 times greater than the black households. See, we have to put this in perspective because no one needs to live in fear. These are facts. We've inherited these understandings. And this is why we sit here this evening, because tonight we draw a line. We say no more. I want you to understand that black people in DC have faced more than 2 centuries of deliberately constructed barriers to wealth building. And some of the highest barriers were embedded by design in law, whether enslaved, barred from jobs, because they don't like the union, Mr. Bedney, in lucrative sections, diverted from a stake in land giveaways, seeing their neighborhoods targeted for urban renewal. Some of us call it the Green New Housing Deal. We're going to talk about that.
Yes, we are.
Because nothing is off limits. Watching their housing options squeezed by federal redlining, black families in the district have had little chance to build wealth. As the nation's capital, it is time that we have these uncomfortable conversations in order that we can break the cycles of poverty and create a fairly balanced DC for all of its citizens. The divide between our citizens and our populations must end. Dignity means the right of a person to be valued and respected for their own sake and to be treated ethically. Approximately 30.7% of district residents, or better yet, 20,367 approximate residents, have reported being depressed or having feelings of anxiety. You think that might have something to do with the instability in the housing, the drug overdosing, open air drug markets, unhealthy accesses to health care. Our very own Dr. Edwin Chapman says that in addition to inhumane housing, food and drug treatment policies by the local Bowser administration, our people are dying due to our, neoliberal health care corporations, such as United Healthcare Group, heard of them? AmeriHealth, Caritas, DC, who are systemically robbing both patients and providers of legitimate services and payments. Tonight we say no more. According to statehood.dc.gov, Washington, D.C.'s residents pay more taxes than residents in 22 states.
That's right.
And they pay more per capita to the federal government than any state.
That's right.
Yeah. WTOP News has reported as recent as March 2024 that DC has more than 40,000 names that appear on a waiting list for vouchers in the district. Can we get an audit? Can we get an internal audit of our poorly managed systems? Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we set a new standard. We say no more. Guys, DC's discrimination law, just in case you think that they have nothing to reference, DC's discrimination law says that every individual shall have an equal opportunity to participate fully in the economic, cultural, and intellectual life of the district, and to have an equal opportunity to participate in all aspects of life, including but not limited to employment, places of public accommodation, resort or amusement, or educational institutions in public service, and in housing and commercial space accommodations. You see or live any violations? DC has a discrimination law that they are very much in violation of. How do we break these cycles without intentional political will or proper community level oversights? Is it realistic to close the 81 times Caucasian wealth gap with the current state of affairs in the district? Can district citizens become homeowners making roughly $17 an hour and living in government-owned housing? We have 3-month trade school settings that don't guarantee job placements. Why are we spending $515 million to save wealthy sports franchises, and yet we have so many out of work? Children lacking advanced education and sky-high truancy rates. Not to mention so many underserved housing communities that are in disrepair. Could we not leverage that money better? Have they not been listening each time professionals such as myself have shown up to their hearings exclaiming that the proper mental health and wellness of our citizens should always matter? I want you to know that in 2021, we delivered a notebook binder to the Congressional Accountability and Oversight Committee that oversees DC. They have something to do with all of the laws that are happening. We delivered a binder and we requested an audit in 2021. In 2022, we contacted 15 district agencies and officials seeking assistance with delivering tenants in Woodbury Village alone from slumlord housing practices in Ward 8 Southeast DC. We reached out to Mr. Trayon White in Ward 8. We reached out to Mayor Muriel Bowser. We reached out to the Office of Attorney General, who was with headed by Mr. Carl Ray Singh and currently Mr. Brian Swall. We reached out on both watches. We've reached out to the Office of Tenant Advocates. We reached out to Mr. Phil Mendelson, the chairperson of the council. I lost count. We reached out to HUD. Yeah. We reached out to Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton's office. We reached out to the fire marshals. Yeah. We reached out to DLB, which was formerly DCRA. Yes. We reached out to the chairperson of the housing committee, Mr. At-Large Robert White. Yes. We've reached out to the Office of the Inspector General, the City Auditor, Bread for the City, Department of Justice, and the DC Housing Authority. Guys, I want you to know that the fight for social justice and the restoral of your human and civil rights continues. We are not satisfied with their dismissive natures. How dare them to believe that the DC that I was born and raised and educated in, the folks that raised and nurtured me while my mother spent 2 decades in St. Elizabeth, and my dear father returned from the military with what was not diagnosed as PTSD at the time, and we lost him to his opioid challenges. But I want you to know back then it was heroin. We all have a DC story, don't we? It's time. It's time. It's time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our DC. We set the standard, and if we have to start shutting landmarks and bridges down to help them understand that we won't take it anymore, then we shall do that. Welcome to Healthy DC and New Leadership Coalitions, along with Sincere 7's Civil and Human Rights Town Hall meeting. This will not be like any other that we've had before. We're done having civil meetings. We'll have civil meetings, protests, and demonstrations for the rights of our people and our young people and our children and our seniors. No more. Red to keep the evening moving. I just want to show a demonstration. Please raise your hand if you've reached out to any DC elected officials and agencies for relief in your housing, working, or economically challenged situations. Anybody? Keep your hands up if you received an adequate response or acceptable solution. Raise your hands if your concern has been resolved on any level. Now raise your hands if you've received no response or if your situational concern still exists. Exactly. DC, it's time to be heard. It's time for action. In your hands, you were given a Q&A form, which is at the back of your handout. We're going to go to a Q&A session shortly. More of a concern, state your concerns, understanding, because one of the healthy things to do is to get it out and not to hold it in. For many of you that showed up this evening, you may have felt that you were alone in this. We're going to invite our panelists to speak as well, but I need you all to know that until we can understand what it looks like when we come together, until we can understand that this is something that affects us all, impacts us all, until we are motivated enough to knock on every building, every door in our building, to get our citizens out from behind those walls of despair. We are no victims, and it's time for us all to be a part of the solution. I am Dr. Rhonda L. Hamilton. I am a proud Ward 8 raised resident who currently lives in Ward 6. The DC I grew up with, I grew up with pride. I'm sorry, I get so emotional. I'm trying to be so reserved. But guys, tonight we make a plan to raise the standards. No more.
No more.
Without any further ado, I want to welcome Mr. Perry Red to the discussion for a further overview of issues and challenges facing our communities. Meanwhile, I would ask you to please jot down any concerns or questions that you might have and feel afraid to speak out. We'll read it for you. But tonight, we put everything on the table. Tonight, we leave here with a plan. God bless you all.
Good evening, good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
I had a video planned for you, and unfortunately, technical difficulties make that an insurmountable challenge for me. So I'm going to be your video. Dr. Hamilton is going to be your video. She just listed 12 entities that we reached out to beginning in October of 2020 to address the issues and ills that plague low-income communities here in D.C. The majority of the people who live in those communities are black. For many of you, or some of you who may know me from my past endeavors, I ran for the council in 2013, a special election, where I accused one of my opponents of being a criminal, a crook. And people criticized me and called me all kinds of names. They talked about my background, my history. They talked about my shoes. But what they didn't talk about was someone who was in a position of leadership was stealing from our people.
Yes.
Someone who was in a position of leadership and was seeking an even greater position was taking money from developers. And during that election, he dropped out. He dropped out not because he was a person of great character and just internal fortitude. It was because he was on the front page of the Washington Post, smiling into a cup full of a roll full of bills. He was accepting a bribe. I will say to you that we've been looking, digging, and waiting for someone to come forward and tell the truth about why our Office of Attorney General will not prosecute slumlords of the apartment complexes known as Woodgate and Woodbury Village and Marbury Plaza. Why is it that your elected representative will not push for enforcement of the DC Tenants' Rights Act?
Right.
I'm bitter. I'm extremely bitter. And I've been accused of being an angry black man.
And so
I ain't mad at him.
I'm an angry black woman.
All right. So I'm looking to lock arms with folks who are angry at injustice and corruption. So I'm going to, it's going to be unbelievable, somebody would call me about now. I'm going to share with you, I only have 10 minutes to do this, and I'm going to try to zoom through it, but we have challenges in housing and employment. Without affordable and habitable housing, people are not stable. And if you're not stable, there's only one other thing you can be. And that's unstable. And Lord knows it is no joy living next door to someone who's unstable. So I do want to talk about our challenges. D.C. is extremely expensive to live in. Let me tell you how expensive it is. I no longer drive a car. I no longer drive a car because I cannot afford the parking or the speed cameras or I can go on. So I ride an electric scooter now for a man of 60. Some people think I've lost my mind. Me too. But it's the only way I'm going to keep my mind. Because otherwise, my life was really unstable, trying to keep up with all the costs of living in this city. Oh, by the way, for 30 years, I never told anyone that I was a veteran.
Wow. Thank you for your service.
And now that I had to, why did I have to? Because I needed assistance with housing.
Wow.
4 years consecutive, I went to the district. And they bragged about how they take care of veterans. And each time I knocked on their door, they told me, we don't have any money for veterans programs, for veterans housing. And thus I still struggle. So we have locked arms with you all and advocated and fought with and had doors closed by the people who have been elected to serve. I could name them. Oh, I will. Right. So we'll start with Councilmember White. At the time, and I didn't say Robert or Trayon, did I? Y'all just too wide. So whichever door it was, and it was both, they did not respond to the tenants' complaints that we had, that we brought to them video evidence. We brought to them DCRA findings when the inspections happened. And then we had an election, and now Councilmember Robert White is the chair of the Housing Committee.
And he's not here.
Oh my goodness. We got a response from a council member saying that, oh, I can't attend because of the Hatch Act. There's a difference between campaigning and representing. Okay? Constituency is not campaigning. And so for any of the council members who may even try that, I say to them, cowardness is very unappealing. But I'm going to make sure I remind the voters, those who will vote, of your cowardice. So I want you to remember as well. I know many of you were brought up as Democrats and you know nothing else and you bleed blue. But guess what? When people robbing you, all right? If your father was raping your sister, my loyalty to my father will fall by the wayside. So some of our challenges look like this. Your mayor's proposing a $500 million cut. The city programs regarding early childhood educator pay. And that equity fund. Unbelievable. All right? And all of us know that our children are our hope. I got 12 grandchildren. And God knows if I fail them, what am I gonna get when I get 65?
You don't want to find
And I'm just throwing this in, it's personal, but because we didn't fail our children, my eldest grandson now he's entering his junior year at West Point.
Wow.
Last week he was at the White House, all right, because he's also on the football field. But it's because we didn't fail him that he will be able to contribute to this society and be a help to his granddaddy brother. And I believe. So we've got to invest in our children. And so if your mayor is not investing in your children, then you have to question why that person's your mayor.
Ask them again.
Listen, budget challenges look like this. There's a sales tax increase that'll be phased in start 2025. And it's supposed to ramp up the support for public transportation, Metro. A sales tax increase is a non-equitable tax. You see, a tax on rich folks is different from a sales tax on you. You see, it looks very small, but you pay more in taxes than folks who have disposable income.
Yes.
Sales taxes
Oh, yeah.
as an increase is a war on the poor. All right? It's just a piece of education for you. Understand this, that your mayor, and this ain't about campaigning for anybody, it's just about the leadership and where their minds are. All right? That's what's relevant and important. The mayor will not be devoting at least the $100 million to the Housing Production Trust.
Wow.
Now, I ain't never trusted you. And that's a great question you asked. Why? For those of us who need it, why is immaterial. It is necessary. And there's not a reason when you can find money, whether it be in another fund or otherwise, to prop up Ted Leonis and the Washington sports team.
Yeah, 550
All right?
million.
It's criminal in nature. We talk about the challenges. I've got 3 clients. All right? Since year 7, we are in our 25th year this year. I am proud of that. I never dreamed that a quarter century later, I'd still be doing this work. But I also didn't dream that I'd still be doing the same. And folks, some of y'all been at this a long time. And as Dr. Hamilton said earlier, we got to say no more.
No more.
It is absolutely criminal that the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, ERAP, they're talking about $20 million. $20 million. Okay, that sounds big if you're going to put it all in your pocket. Okay, but you're not. And I've got 3 clients right now who can't get ERAP, who are facing eviction. And so we've been fighting against these red letter evictions. We've been fighting against, what's a red letter eviction, Perry Ray? I'm glad you asked. Let's talk about it. There's folks who are getting these letters on their doors, looking really official and scary and embarrassing.
Yes.
It says that you
Yes.
gonna pay this amazing amount of money. Right? We had a client, I had one client, they said that they, your arrears are $240,000.
What?
All right? And pay them in 30 days, and if you don't have it in 30 days, you're evicted. And listen, they never told me they had a court date or nothing. And because of those red letter evictions, people are moving.
Yep.
They're packing up.
Yep.
And I just thank God that some of them have contacted us and tell them, don't you move anything.
That's right.
All right? And what landlords have been allowed to do is charge market rate rent
Yeah.
where people have vouchers. when people have assistance from our government. And then we've got another guilty party, where Housing and Urban Development, who issue these vouchers, this assistance, does not come in and advocate for these tenants. And the tenants don't know any better. Some are illiterate. Some of them are just, it is criminal in nature.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we together,
Yeah.
right? LTDC, we are coming up with ways to get assistance for those who are facing that. All right? Well, we gonna help you recertify, because we got landlords who are closing the certification office.
Yeah.
They're closing their property office, their rental offices when it's time to recertify. All right?
Don't get a
That's
notice.
criminal. All right? It's criminal.
Late
So the
notice.
fact is, we need to address it. $20 million for ERAP, $100 million is needed. That's what I need you to demand of the council member. That's what I need you to demand of Robert White, of Trayon White, of Councilmember Henderson. I need you to demand this from these council members. 60 million, listen, the man wanted to get 68 million for streetscapes.
For who?
Yeah, to make it really beautiful going down Connecticut Avenue.
Yeah.
Going down. 68 million, but she's gonna take money from ERAP.
Right.
Right? Not affordable money for that. But beautification, that draws more folks in the city. To me, that's the G word. And yes, I got food before when I ran, but saying the G word.
What's the G?
Oh, one more time.
Gentrification, yeah.
Okay? Telling the truth.
In the District of Columbia, the most of you.
The most of it. Listen.
That's what it is.
And even those who are gentrified, they most of them will recognize. Most will recognize. So it is relevant and important for us to realize that we have budget challenges, including a rollback in the earned income tax credit. There's so much that's unacceptable in this. And I want to talk about this thing before I leave you. It's really important. This new Green Deal for housing. The only thing green about it is the shirts that the mayor wears when she campaigns. Right? Now, it's going to be some folks, and I'm going to make sure that what I'm saying right now is rebroadcast on our channel, and we're going to make sure that folks are able to say, oh, Perry Red, you disparaged us. I disparage no one. I only tell truth. Because I don't lie well.
Okay.
And so that means if I tell it one time, it's the same every time I say it. There are two proposals.
Church up in here.
Well,
Truth don't need
there
no
are
help.
two proposals right now that are facing off. And I'm here because I want you to get the understanding, the fullest understanding about this. Because this will determine where we go with fair housing, affordable housing, and stable housing. There's a bill that is up right now before the council called social housing. And it's all the rage.
Speak.
Folks are just, they're raving over social housing.
The brand new housing bill.
Oh my goodness, say it again.
That's an ugly sign.
Here we go. Social housing, but you know what? If I know that that's not the correct answer, then what do I do? If I do nothing, then I'm guilty for letting them roll over me.
Yeah.
So what we
The
did,
chairperson of the housing agreed. He
what'd
signed
he say?
off.
no, he didn't.
About 6 of them, Mr.
What?
Mr.
I just heard,
signed
I just heard Ms.
off.
Cooper say 7 of them.
Yeah.
Does that, well, knowing that, if I allow that to happen without placing a alternative plan on the table, then I'm just as guilty as they are for passing a bogus law.
No standards.
All right? And we're not going to accept it. Dr. Hamilton said right there at that podium, no more. So we introduced an opposing bill. Now, whether or not we'll get a co-sponsor or not is all dependent upon you. We introduced a bill called the HEART Act,
That's right. That's
the
right.
Housing Equitable and Repair Trust Fund.
Housing equitable and advanced repair. Trust.
It sounds good to me. So, what is social housing as opposed to the HEART Act? Well, social housing, by definition, and it's all the rage across the country, neoliberals are introducing it. Sounds like a great idea, so that you don't have to worry about these landlords anymore. The government will own the housing, and you won't have to worry about repairs anymore.
Well,
They're
they're
doing
not
such a great job with the current housing.
Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Now what happened to our history? Did we forget about housing projects?
Yeah.
I thought we came a long way. I thought we had walked into the future.
Going to the back.
We just regressed. We just walking backwards in the history.
What about HUD showing up about 2 years ago? Didn't we fail 80%? Uh-oh.
So here we go. Yeah, social housing. We're the government on. Okay? Oh, Advanced Repair Trust Fund.
I'm going to save any comments for the next.
Yes,
next round.
absolutely. So, you got social housing. Now, understand this, government-owned housing. So what you get are responses like you've been getting. 2, there's no reason to change the status quo. And who do you submit your request and your complaints to? The very people who are not responding to you now.
That's right.
Oh, that's genius, isn't it? Question yourself if you go for that one. So there is no change in the accountability factor with the status quo. So the alternative is the HEART Act. And the HEART Act says this, that if the landlord does not respond when you have mold growing in your apartment, when you got leaking, you know, I listened to your testimony over and over and over, young man. I'm very proud of it. Because he didn't make, this gentleman didn't miss any words. Okay? Told the story about the carpet and the water when he's walking on the carpet in his home now, and it's squishy.
What about the mushrooms in the sea?
Oh my goodness, mushrooms growing on the, can you imagine?
Oh, no.
Well, some folks don't have to imagine. Choose Christians. Some people don't have to imagine.
Speak,
And
Perry.
just like with these guns, we got to do something different to get it right. We can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
Well, with the HEART Act, if the landlord doesn't respond, and this is in the legislation that we offered,
That's right.
right?
Take them to school.
Dr. Hamilton, did we not?
Take it to school.
If the landlord doesn't act, then the Repair Trust Fund authorizes you to have the repair done anyway.
All right.
And now the fight is not between you and the landlord.
Come on now.
The fight, because it came out of that trust fund, is with the government and the landlord.
Right.
But your repair happens when it's supposed to happen.
Right.
Now, I believe that we got to do it different. And that's different. That's called progressiveness.
That's right.
Okay? It is not something that I stamped and labeled. It is what it is. So in other words, the repairs are guaranteed. That's how you keep a very healthy housing stock.
That's right.
Because maintenance is part of the game. No, we don't begrudge anyone making profit. Yes, you can make a profit,
Yeah,
but
but
you
not in
can't
mine.
just make it off my back
Yes,
and
that's
give
right.
nothing back. So we're doing it different, and you say no more. And so with this, when the landlords don't comply with DC law, they have to deal with the district government as opposed to the tenant having to. So, factually speaking, that is a more realistic approach.
Yes,
There's
it
more
is.
to it, all right? And we have provisions in it against these red letter evictions. We have provisions in this legislation that any responsible councilman, and we're gonna make sure we pass the word along to him. Here is the responsible legislation that will address all those hands that went up. You see, I wanted to just take note of your hands when Dr. Hamilton asked for hands. I wanted to take note because I'm among them. I'm a DC tenant as well. And yes, when my water leaked in my shower, it leaked for doggone 4 weeks. And my landlord did. I said, you know what? I'm not gonna keep asking you because now it's mold grown. I'm not gonna keep asking. I said, I'm going to make sure that I go through these processes and I'm going to cost you a lot of damn money. Okay? And then I showed them a couple of videos, my property manager, of some of our advocacy, including Miss Cooper. Because, man, when they saw that one, all of a sudden, 2 days later, I got a knock at the door and they took the whole wall out of my damn place.
That's right. That's right.
They took the whole wall out. So, and no more leak, no more mold. They not only, what they call remediating the mold?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, pulled all that out. All that out. So it works well. If you come up with a different plan, we gotta do it different. So we have challenges in employment, and that means wage theft enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the Wage Theft Prevention Act, that's my baby. Had a hand in that.
All right.
And still have a hand in trying to make them enforce it. DOES is responsible for that and often fail. So wage theft enforcement, equalizing tipped wages. Understand that now people that work in restaurants don't have to rely on the good nature of people. If I'm in a good mood, then you can get paid. That sounds a little slavish to me.
Yeah.
We came a long way from that.
That's right.
All right?
That's right.
If you knew your history, you wouldn't want to walk back into it.
That's
All
right. That's right.
We were the opposition by council members to unions.
Come on now.
This is abhorrent to me. So when we have council members who say that they hate unions,
Come on now.
that they, I ain't with unions. Don't even talk to me. Listen, for those of you who don't know your history, some years ago, it's getting up there now, but there's a gentleman named A. Philip Randolph and the Pullman Porters Union.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
was black men who worked on trains who got tips. And that's the reason, that's how tips came about, you know. It was because white males said, we're not going to, this is during Jim Crow, we're not going to accept earning the same wage as a black man. So they couldn't even earn wages, but they could earn tips. And people, black people in this country did prevail. They did prevail and worked their way through it, but shouldn't have had to. So we're not going to walk backwards into history. And so as you know, that the tip wage is going up gradually. And on July 1st, which we had a hand in, right? Yes, sir, was at the table with you folks. We were at the table with paid family leave too. But on July 1st of this year, just like July 1st of last year, the minimum wage in the district goes into effect. Now, does that help us to close that wage gap, that earning gap, that 81% of animals that are coming to early? But this opposition to council members understand unions and union wages help bring people of color into the middle class. Black people.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
All right? I've never studied when I identify who I am. All right, I was born in Southwest, raised in Southeast, raised in Northeast, live in Northwest. But I'm a DC native.
All right. That's right. That's right.
And lastly, I'll say this, that the opposition to those unions, that helps widen the disparity gap. So we must fight for more unions, even though we're a right to work state, district state. We should be a state. And I said, I'm sorry. Non-enforcement of the First Source Act. So we've got someone on this panel who's going to speak to that. But this non-enforcement by our Attorney General means that we need a new Attorney General. And I ain't campaigning, but I do know this, that we have been here on wage theft issues, on the housing conditions issues, and the selective nature of who we chooses to prosecute makes me want an investigation. And yes, we went to the IG and said there is a problem here where we got clear violations of the law, but you choose to prosecute this one, but not this one. And if you look at Marbury Plaza, there is no great example of the need to prosecute, much less investigate. Investigate what? Look at the water. You don't have to investigate anything. It's about prosecution. That's what we are demanding. Folks, I want to give it back to Dr. Hamilton and just know that human and civil rights are human.
I know it's wrong, but please give that young man another round of applause. Mr. Kunta-Batney, would you please come forward? Mr. Kunta-Batney is very much another soldier on the battlefield. He's got a word for you.
How everyone doing today?
All right, all right.
I'd like to just start off by telling my story, how I got here in front of you today, and then I get into some solutions and things I think that we can do to help our community grow as a people. My name is Kunta-Batney, like Dr. Hamilton said. I am a native Washingtonian. Born and raised here in Southeast DC, around part of the city. So I was born in 1979. My mom, she got incarcerated in 81. My dad got incarcerated in 83. My dad never made it home from Lowell prison. He got killed in 85. My mom came home in 91, but you know, she had to do some years in the halfway house before I was able to get into her care. So I got into her care about 94. By that time, I was already ripping and running the streets. Stood in her household for about, say, I lasted about a year and a half, no more than 2 years before I was like back out on the corner, ripping and running. I dropped out of high school in 98 in Dunbar Senior High School. I was locked up by 1999. So when I came home, I went to Sasha Bruce Youth Build Program. There I got a GED, a pre-apprenticeship certificate in instruction. And I went to join the Carpenters Union, worked my way up.
Yes.
Apprentice to a journeyman to a foreman, now I'm a representative for the Carpenters. And one of the things that I could say by growing up as a troubled youth in these streets, right? Growing up without the guidance of a father or mother, you kind of become a product of your environment. And you had no vision, right? I had no vision to see 5, 10 years down the road. But when I joined the Carpenters Union apprenticeship, I knew that when I came home, I had 3 years on paper, so I needed to do something to make sure that I could survive these 3 years without getting in trouble. So the apprenticeship way was to go, and I got inside of that lane and I worked my way up, and that's how I got here in front of you today. So I know that the youth, like that's coming up in the underserved communities, it's hard for them to vision because we have a lot of first generations of them, right? So the vision that I had was once I got inside that apprenticeship program, I knew that how many hours I needed and how much school time I needed to get to my second, to my third, to my fourth year to get out of the apprenticeship. And as a convicted felon, at the time, I think I started off making like $13 as a first year apprentice, and I was like, fourth year I've been making 23. That's great. That's not even including like my benefits because I got Blue Cross Blue Shield Healthcare, Louisiana.
Yes.
So now our pay scale went up since I came. It's about $34 now. And the benefit drop is about $50 a month.
Very good. Very good.
So you looking at someone that's right here in front of you today that makes 6 figures a year, like with a GED.
Yeah. Come on, man. Yeah.
So to say that it can't be done, it can be done.
Yes, sir.
I talk to the council members and everyone all the time about my opportunity and what I had and how we could kind of reproduce me, like turn 1 and 2, 2 and 4. And there's some things that we have to do to get there, right? So we need to strengthen the first source law.
Yes, sir.
We need to make sure that there's a law that protects DC residents where it ensures them that they have some type of right on the job, especially these construction jobs. As you can see, our city skyline changing. So this, what I'm talking about is something that can be like, we can see a difference starting tomorrow.
That's
if
right.
we have the right people in place to do the right thing. We can start getting these young men and women off the corner and get them inside these training programs and get them on these construction jobs tomorrow if it's like the right thing to do, right? We can get it done, but we have to make a real clear path for them to understand the path that they can take and start to change their lives and start to become productive citizens in which, you know, our city can produce. Because as you know, the great Merritt Berry, he built. If you think about the work he done, he built Prince George's County, he built Mitchellville, he built the high class parts of Prince George's County because all of the workers went out there and set better housing and better opportunity, but they also work in the district.
That's right.
So, you know, I think that, you know, as a people, I come to you and I offer you for your constituents, for the people you know, your grandsons, your cousins, your brothers, your uncles, a chance to come inside of our apprenticeship program and find a way where they can better themselves, right? Because it's an opportunity for them to make great money, benefits, but also learn like what it's like the rights, because they're gonna learn like not to vote with this, but to vote who's helping you.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. And that's the most important thing that we gotta understand here is that we need people to help us understand that part that, you know, we as African Americans, we are emotional people, right? So people always come and hit us with the guilt trip and we feel sorry and we
Send us roses and Valentine's Day.
I mean, like, what you doing to help me put food in my kids' mouth? That's what are you doing to help me provide for my kids' health care? What are you doing to help make sure that I can try to build generational wealth for me and my
Yes, sir.
And that's what I need to hear from you. I don't need to hear, I do have empathy. Because I come from nothing.
Come on.
So I want to pull people up with me. So
Yes, sir.
But at the same time, there's a lot of wasteful spending out here. And I don't see our tax dollars working for us to help us with the crime, help us get these young men and young women in a better place than what they should be. So, you know, we could do it as a city, but we just have to understand the laws and everything that's out there. So we need to check into First Source, strengthen First Source. I am proud to say we was in a battle with project labor agreements. So anytime the district spends $75 million. It should have been done with a project labor agreement. That means it brings union to the table, community to the table, developers to the table, and talk about outcomes of a job. So we were successful with getting that threshold lower from 75 to 50. It don't start until 2026, but Joe Biden, on the federal side, he put anytime the federal government spent $35 million or more, it should be done with a project labor agreement. So we want to work that federal side with project labor agreements. We're trying to get your constituents to work, and when the DC PLA stuff kick in, we'll be ready to get them ready to go inside of these DC projects. So Dr. Hamilton had my number. If anybody interested, I don't mind sharing my number with you right now. Give me a call if you know anybody trying to get to work. I'm working for DC residents. I want to give young men and women the chance that I had to change my life and make this money that I'm making, and enjoy building this city. One of the most powerful projects I work on is the African American Museum. So when you go in that museum, the steps, you're walking on my steps. I did all the steps. So,
Wow. All right. Yeah.
Liberate our program, our apprenticeship program. My son, 20 years ago,
Come on.
went to the apprenticeship program. He signed up in Maryland and Virginia. Virginia called him and said because he wasn't a Virginia resident, he could not be in their program. When he was called in the district to the apprenticeship program, he was the only district person there. Maryland and Virginia people were there. Check the source.
okay, well, I don't know which program that was.
He was an electrician. He was a journeyman electrician.
Okay, yes, the electrician was probably one of the harder electrician unions, was one of the harder unions to get into. I know electricians, elevator, some of them was kind of hard to get into. But that stigma is broke, right? So we have to use things that's for our favor. You know, you heard the word DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. You have to use some things some laws that's set for you, and you know how to talk and get them to work for you in your favor, so that you can understand how to use these angles. And I think come to places like this where we don't talk, or get an understanding of what's out there. I think it gives us a better chance. So I'm in right there. Thank you.
Guys, give Mr. Bettany another round of applause, please. And let's be clear, Healthy DCME Leadership Coalition means that it takes all of us. It takes the village. So Mr. Bettany is not going anywhere.
That's right.
This is not a one-time event. This is the network that we are building. So give our panelists a round of applause. I'd like to invite Dr. Chapman to speak, and we have our representative, Ms. Reed from the Whistleblowers Film Festival and Summit. It is important that we recognize that as emotional people, it's not okay to sit on our emotions. There are actions that could be taken. We're hoping that if nothing else thus far this evening, you've learned that the standards that you're living by are too low. Guys, I want to read something, and I thank God for our panel. And thank you, Mr. Bettany, for our continued partnership as we go forward to save our youth and troubled souls. And what Mr. Bettany did not mention is that they have an open house that's happening tomorrow. And so I'm hoping that he's going to get some literature your way. And please don't let him get out of this room without you getting his information. Especially my community leaders. We depend on our big mamas. See, my big mama has passed on. And you guys, the baton has been passed. So to my tenant association leaders, to my wisdom in the room, when all the city services shut down, you're still there. You are our leaders, and we must build the network that our youth need to get out of trouble. His union has a 450-seated classroom.
Yeah, we just sent somebody to him last week. That's right.
All right, let's keep this energy going so that we can get it all done. I want to read something to you. As I told you, everyone was invited. Dr. Hamilton, thank you for inviting Mayor Bowser to your event. While the mayor deeply appreciates the invitation, unfortunately, due to commitments in the mayor's schedule, she will be unable to make this work for her calendar. So many of the invitations Mayor Bowser receives offer worthy events. But as you can imagine, it is a challenge to accommodate every invitation. Mayor Bowser thanks you for inviting her in hopes that you have a successful event. If I or the Office of Scheduling in advance can ever be of assistance in the future, please do not hesitate to reach out. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the representation of your leader. And of course, I will read my response, which was very tactful but deliberate. The health and human rights, the civil, and human rights of DC citizens are worthy. And at 6 o'clock on a Thursday evening, someone from your office should have been here.
That's right.
Guys, it's time to set the standard.
Yeah.
On any given day in DC, I can find sideline professors. What I need are soldiers that are ready to stand in the forefront.
Wow.
Because it's time to act. So will you do me a favor and give applause as I extend an invitation to Dr. Edward Chapman, who I know is going to come up and take me to school. See, we don't have to have leaders that are dismissive and don't get it. We have history living amongst us.
That's
We
right.
have the talent and the know-how to get the job done. So pay attention, we got work to do.
A5.
So why would a physician be here talking about housing? We know, if we really look back, that 80% of health outcomes are related to where you live, where you were born, where you live, and where you work. And we haven't really applied that rule. My office, I've been in Washington since 1964. I'm 78. I graduated from Howard University Medical School
Hey, sure.
1973. So that was 51 years ago. I should have retired, but my office on Benning Road over the past 44 years, I've seen an evolutionary change. I've seen brand new housing come up all around, but over the past 4 years, we've had homeless people living in the median strip with the trolley cars going by on both sides. We have open air drug market in my parking, in the medical parking lot behind my building. We never had that before. So all of this has evolved over the past 5 to 6 years. If you go by my office now, you'll see fences all around as if we're fenced in a prison, trying to keep people out. But the point is that we have, as Dr. Hamilton has pointed out, we have an economic problem. And that economic problem has impacted healthcare in the city. In the past year, we had a 12% increase in homelessness during COVID. We have now this drug epidemic that people don't talk about. They talk about it as a white epidemic. But 25 years ago, I got involved in substance abuse treatment, running one of the 3 methadone clinics in the district. And I saw, I tell people that that's when I really learned to practice medicine, because at that point, I no longer treated just high blood pressure or diabetes. I really started hearing the stories, and I just heard several of those stories of the trauma that this young man went through. I have heard those stories at least 7,000 times. I ran a methadone clinic that's now over on the grounds of DC General. So I saw multiple generations, grandmother, mother, child, come through that clinic. And I heard that story so many times, that we're a product of our environment, and we call that a pair of ACEs, or adverse childhood community experiences and adverse community environments. So we're actually living in a war zone. And that war zone is not of our making. This evolved over 400 years. So this is just the latest iteration. So I came to Washington in 1964 as an undergrad. My second semester in sociology, I was trying to figure out whose class to take, and somebody told me to take Nathan Hare. Little did I know that Nathan Hare was Stokely Carmichael's mentor. And where did they get their information? Well, they were reading a book called The Wretched of the Earth, written by a psychiatrist by the name of Frantz Fanon. So if you really want to understand colonialism and gentrification, you should read, look up Frantz Fanon, look up Wikipedia, and you'll get a brief history, and you'll understand who your mayor is, you'll understand who the people on the east side of the city are, and you'll understand what white supremacy is all about.
That's right.
And what that really does is through colonialism and gentrification, the people who in the middle class, so to speak, of the conquered become the oppressors. They become just like the folks who came in and took over. That's right. And that's what you're living every day. So once I figured that out, life became a bit easier for me to navigate healthcare and some of the trenches and ruts in the road, so to speak, going forward. Our healthcare system is really controlled by corporate America, by investors.
That's right.
And so you may not understand why we leave homeless people on the street, but if you have 98% of the residents of the District of Columbia are insured, guess what? Somebody's getting paid whether they're seen or not. So they would rather not have a homeless person come into treatment because they're getting paid every month. During COVID, they were making, your Medicaid insurance companies were making money, hand over fist. They had no incentives to go out and find people and bring them into care. So when we understood how that system was set up, we decided to fight back. Now, let me just give you an example. In 2014, there were 83 overdose deaths in the District of Columbia.
83.
83. But in 2015, fentanyl hit. It was 20% fentanyl. As Dr. Hamilton pointed out, last year was 98% fentanyl. Fentanyl is 50 to 100 times more potent than heroin. So we had 522 overdose deaths. That's a 600% increase. And guess what? 30% of them were among the homeless. They died on the street. These were people who potentially had health care but were never treated. So there's money to be made by these so-called insurance companies. But we decided that understanding this system, that we were not going to let that continue, that we were going to come out into the community, we were going to find people, and we were going to change that healthcare system by using people in the community to find people in the community who have high blood pressure, who have diabetes, who have mental health problems. We know who those people are. We can bring them into care, and we can force the system to pay for them, because we know that if we don't, one of three things is going to happen. They're either going to die, they're either going to end up in jail, or they're going to end up homeless on the streets. So our focus is the fact that we know that, how much do you think a homeless person is worth? Give me a guess. Anybody? Untreated, a homeless person with
$25,000.
Not even close.
Not even close.
$100,000. criminal activity. 50% of my patients who were 52 years of age on average 7 years ago had hepatitis C. 10% already had AIDS because it's an older population. So when you add the medical costs, the criminal costs, and guess what? You still have to clean up behind them, and if they're standing up, that means they got something to eat, they got something to drink. Where did they get that from? So and some were abandoned by their families, so they left their families. So all of those are social service costs that you have to add up. But guess what? If you spent $50,000 on 5,000 homeless people, that comes to $250 million. That's half of what the mayor gave to Ted Leonis to renovate his stadium. You could spend $25,000 on housing and food, and another $25,000 on health care, and still save $250 million. Not just 1 year, but every year after that. So it's how you do the math. We have to sit down and show them how to do the math. It's where you put the money, where you make that investment. And if you make that initial investment, then it replicates year after year. But not only that, you're creating jobs within the community. The goal for us is we can take care of each other. So I'm here to you'll see a lot of emails from me through Dr. Hamilton, and I can explain from an economic standpoint, from a medical standpoint, how all of this fits together. Housing saves money.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yes, sir.
Thank you for hanging in there. Please give Dr. Chapman another round of applause. Coalition of leaders and advisors, if they show up ready, they won't have to get ready because they stay ready. Thank you, sir.
One thing I forgot to tell, I lived in Marbury Plaza until 48 years ago.
Wow.
I got married, and then I lived a couple of blocks from here for a couple of years, right after I got married.
And it was the creme de la creme, correct?
Yeah.
It was the creme de la creme. I mean, all of the notables lived there, right? Yeah.
Just
now
like
we should
Wingate.
turn it into public housing. Imagine that. Guys, thank you so very much. We're going to open it up for question and answering in just a moment. I want to invite Ms. Marcelle Reed to the microphone. She's another powerful leader because you need to know
Yes.
that your emotions need to transition into speaking out. And this is a young lady who can help you to understand how to do that and how to do that and be heard. Ms. Marcelle Reed, will you please come to the mic? Please get your questions ready. We're going to open up for you as soon as she finishes. Thank you, Marcelle.
So obviously I did not come here today to sit on the panel. I just ran out of the house because I remembered that I said I was going to be here, so voila. I am not from DC. I am not from the East Coast. I am SOC. I'm straight out of Compton. And Compton is a blighted area. Everything bad that you can think of, every derogatory term, every dismissive attitude is directed at the people where I come from. It is a population of less than 80,000, and we have produced the most brilliant people. We don't have to talk about Kendrick Lamar. We can go all the way back to the Bushes who used to live in Compton, but nobody tells you that. We were a upper middle class community. Every street had a swimming pool. The lawns to this day are still manicured. But the people living inside of those facade houses are broken. And they're broken by a system that will not let them flourish. The that fears the raw intelligence of these people who have been pushed to the side. So the same way that you go back, Dr. Chapman, to how you understand sociology, I go back to Dr. Joy DeGruy.
Yes.
And
yes.
she talks about post-traumatic slave disorder, which most of us suffer from. And then you overlay that with Willie Lynch and colorism. And it is very hard for some of us to get anywhere.
Yes.
Because every time you look in the mirror, what you see is everything that everyone told you you didn't know. I am a whistleblower.
All right.
That's how I got here. I told the truth trying to save some people that I had taken responsibility for, and I had left Compton. When I moved here, I moved to McLean, Virginia. I didn't move to D.C. D.C. for me was a place I visited one time when I was stationed in New Jersey, and we came up to see the memorials. That was it, the monuments. Once I moved, I was in a bakery, and I heard Ambrose Lane on the radio.
Yes,
Okay.
And I left the
Yeah.
bakery, went to my car, found the channel, which I had never tuned.
All right.
89.3
That's right.
WPIW. Right, I didn't know anything. Ambrose Lane made me remember why I left Compton and the anger I had when I left Compton. I wasn't ashamed of the people, and I wasn't ashamed of being from Compton, but I was ashamed of being consistently undervalued, consistently told that I was a certain type of person. And I was none of those things. There was nothing that they assigned me. But what I was I knew that there had to be a way out. So when I came to the district, I started to think, if there's anywhere in the world you're going to change the world, it's going to be in D.C. Everybody in the world comes to D.C. to change their lives and the lives of the people around them. But when I speak to people from D.C., they don't value it. I am always arguing with people about the fact you don't value who you are and who you live and what you can do. So I would give these whistleblower summits on Capitol Hill because whistleblowing was considered to be something that white people did. You know, there was Edward Snowden, and there were all of these high-profile whistleblowers. There was the guy that just died last year. He did the Pentagon Papers.
Yeah.
You know, all of these people were considered, but there were no black whistleblowers. You know, Title VII whistleblowing is not even considered whistleblowing. The whistleblowing community pushes it off. It's a Title VII complaint. We don't want to deal with that.
Wow.
Because those are complaints that specifically target discriminatory practices, and we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about the banker. We want to talk about the military industrial complex. We want to talk about intelligence officers. All of those things we've had at the summit. But what we did not have was black whistleblowers. So I started to give this event on the Hill after I became a whistleblower. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know. I just asked a question about the money, and next thing I know, it's all over. And when I invited them up, the people in D.C. wouldn't come. I would go and say, this is an event. Come to the event. Because this way you get to meet your congressperson. I'm not talking about Eleanor Holmes. But you get to speak to congresspeople. You understand that these laws, right? It's just like the city council. You understand that there is a city council and a federal city council, right? You get this. So if you understand that, you can't think that everything is going to change because you're in a Wilson building. Because there's an entirely different group of people that are calling the shots. But if you don't understand that, and why don't you understand that? Because you don't understand about the structure. I'm from Compton. You live here. The question is, why don't you know the structure? And the answer is because you're always being diverted.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, you ask question A, they answer B. You ask B, they answer C. You ask C, they answer D. By the time it's over with, you're so angry and confused and misdirected till you don't know the questions to ask.
Yeah.
I have no access to anything anyone else doesn't have. The only thing I'm telling you is, this is the most important city in the United States.
Yeah.
We look to you. And the only way the rest of us, the people from the Comptons and the Willowbrooks and the, Watts, the only thing we talk about is what they do in D.C.
That's right.
And you're in D.C. So I just want to say that this burden is more than just you and your block. It's us and our block.
That's right.
And we want to look up to you because for us, D.C. is the shining city on the hill. You're not the way they're talking about. We want to see black people flourish. We were proud of Marion Barry.
Yeah.
Because we understood what he was doing. We understood everything that was going against him, I'm sorry. But we also understood everything that he did.
Yeah.
And I'm only out here telling you that after working in social justice in D.C., I have marched, it must be 300 miles in D.C. I've worked on everything from living wages to housing. But this city is too important. You people are too important.
Yes.
This place is too important.
That's right.
Because we're not just people, you're not just a place. For us, for all of us out there in the hinterland, you guys are holding the torch. And all we're seeing is the torch going out. So it may be personally uncomfortable for you to have a bad mayor, but for us, it's more devastating than that. Because you're the best educated, you're the brightest, you have the most access, you're closest to, you understand the law.
That's right.
Why in the world is it coming to DC transformative immediately? But it isn't. And that's because you guys have got to, for the rest of us, pick brave, strong, intelligent people who will go forward regardless. You need a group of whistleblowers
Yes.
who stand up and speak up.
Yes. Tell me.
Because the whole world, but especially folks in Compton, we need you. Thank you.
Keep those applause going. All right, we are running hours. Thank you very much, Ms. Marcel. We know she didn't come to speak. But guys, this is about empowerment. I'm a mental health advocate, and I realize that we've been living with so much. And it is time for us to take our power back. If we're going to take this city back, you got to take your power back.
Yeah.
Amen?
Yeah.
All righty. Question and answering time. I know that Mr. Bettany is somewhere in the room, front center. Mr. Bettany, we got some questions. Guys, this is your time. We got 30 minutes out. And I am so proud of you all because you could have just left. You didn't have to take the time, but you showed up. Guys, we're building a network because there's an action plan. So we're going to do Q&A for the next 15, 20 minutes to make sure your voices are heard, make sure you get some questions answered. More importantly, you were given a handout. In your handout that you got, it talks to you a lot about what we talked about this evening. There's one thing that's not in your handout, and that would be the HEART Act legislation. Those of you who want some nighttime reading, who want to be better informed before you show up at that ballot box to make an informed decision. Not that you have a lot of choices, but I mean, really, it's time for us to go to work, and it starts right on June 4th, or actually before June 4th, because Ms. Reed, I couldn't have said it any better. Why in the world would folks all over the nation come here expecting us to do something that we're not doing? We have to raise the standard. All righty, Q&A. All you gotta do is hold your hand up, and I'll call on you, and you can stand up. We'll start here and come around, and come right around here. And don't miss your blessing. We're talking about mobilizing. We have a plan of action. So hold tight. Hello, how are you? Introduce yourself for us.
My name is Brother Khan.
Brother Han, welcome.
I'm a writer and activist.
Awesome, a writer and an activist. All right. What's your question?
You can call me good troublemaker.
That's the right minute for troublemakers. We had a lot of troublemakers, peaceful troublemakers like Martin Luther King, so thank you.
And a student of the most honorable Dr. Chapman.
Oh, then you are peeps then, as they say.
I like your shirt.
I want to please ask one question.
Sure.
You see, I can see the health disparity, right?
Health
The
disparity,
economic
yes.
disparity
Economic, yes.
between the black and the white.
That's right.
Right? And the 400 years of
Slavery, that's right.
segregation, lynching, right? One thing I'm not sure why people don't demand is reparations. I think reparation is the key. Why are people shy in calling out for reparations?
I don't think that they're shy. We have to be realistic, and if you want to join the commission and would like to start that language, we will support that. I think the reality is that we are people that if you have every conversation across the city about issues affecting us, we're at the bottom of those lists, and they're not raising us up any sooner than they are. So as I mentioned earlier, just as in housing, it becomes challenging to get folks to speak out because they're retaliated against. This is systemic. So if you're willing to prepare something that will allow us to address the systemic challenges for being able to receive the reparations, because we're not interested in just making headlines, we want action. And so we welcome that question. Mr. Ray?
Well, we did have, I wanted to speak to the reparations. We did have a hearing in the last council session, sponsored by Councilmember McDuffie. And so reparations is an issue. I know at 7, we've been supporters of reparations for 2 decades. But here in the district, Councilmember McDuffie has a committee, a subcommittee, dedicated toward that. So just know that it is an active, ongoing conversation here in the district. And we'll find a way to connect you if that's an interest.
Actually, we'd like to probably put our own committee together and help them along, because I happen to be of the class that wants action. Now everything's coming along. We've got to move them along.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
And we had some folks who were here in the city from Georgetown, and they have a library set up just for black folks who are from the district. It's just a section of the library, so that you can find out if you are a descendant. Yes, if you're a descendant of the school, because they're paying reparations to those who had forebearers who were slaves at GW.
I love that information. And again, I'd like us to put a commission together, maybe after we shut a few landmarks down and get their attention on the right level, then we can start moving forward with some of the things that we need to see happen. We love that question, and especially from my brother. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Stand up, please. Hello, Desmond. Mr. Qualey, how are you? Representing Marbury Plaza, proud and strong. What say you?
Good. I have a quick question, Rhonda. The Tenants Bill of Rights. Is this the current one that's exists in D.C. right now?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm not sure if others are in the room are aware that there's a proposed Tenants Bill of Rights, because you talked about, the outcomes as far as, we talked about in housing as far as, due to the fact that, there are some punitive, I call it, measures and enforcements that will be good. And if, the people in the room can get a copy of that, they will see what we're advocating for as far as the Tenants Bill of Rights for proposal that we would like them to press all the senators, the council members, to get on board so they can vote for this proposed amendments that will better, enforce the laws that will help all DC tenants, not just Marbury Plaza, not just Woodbury, but all tenants in the District of Columbia who are, living in DC.
Oh boy, how I love my empowering tenants that already know where we're going. And yes, Mr. Quayle, that is part of the action plan this evening. Anyone that didn't get a copy of the DC Tenant Bill of Rights, when you came in, please stop by the table on your way out. Anyone wanting a copy of the HART legislation that was submitted again, please, on your way out, let Dr. Ann Coles know at the registration table, and it will be on your email. Is there anyone else on this side of the room? I'm coming, Bobby. Hi, how are you? Welcome. Your name is? Kiana. Will you come a little forward so we can hear you?
I live right here in Greenleaf Garden,
Awesome. Welcome.
and I grew up in the Murrayburg area.
All right.
But I have noticed that we don't have any Boys and Girls Clubs.
That's right. That's
I grew
right.
up with Boys and Girls Clubs,
That's
not
right.
recreational centers. Boys and Girls Club, 6th District right there, Benner Road. We had counselors, we went places, I knew how to ski, skate, golf, everything that they didn't expect for us to know how to do, right?
All right.
But I noticed we have these ANC commissioners and leaders around certain neighborhoods, right? We don't have the things that I had growing up. So when you say the violence of the youth, we always start at an age where we miss a part of a point where we have playgrounds and stuff that have age requirements and limits on it. Like your child can only be 7 to play at Eastern Market. I have an 11-year-old. But if my son goes to the school, it's gated up. They can't play at the playground. So where do they go? If they go to a store, or it's a game, they're doing something. So my question is, what's going to happen in between time? I know we focus on our babies, then we skip, and then we look at the teenagers. But what about the in-between time? And I noticed, like, I'm sending a lot of my elders in here, so I know that everybody know what I'm talking about. We're skipping something.
Yeah, it's a generational
These
divide.
reps,
I get it.
it's
And
not
it starts
happening.
with our voting and our leadership, and that's a wonderful question, but beyond that, it starts on the community level. I'm a Ward 8 baby, and I'm a Mayberry area as well. The reason why I got in this, the reason why I realized that I had to trade my street cred to come to the forefront, because I know you all are out there. We were all raised with that, right? We took the village, right? We all have stories, but the reality of having folks migrating here or having folks dictating standards of living that we don't conform to, that are leaving our babies behind, warrants that we speak up and show up. There are 500,000 people registered to vote in DC. 200,000 are showing up. And so this leadership is using these circles, these cliques, these A and C, not all, but most. These gatekeepers. Why? Because we don't show up to the A and C meetings. And that's why I put the bat in the sky. I called on my big mamas in the community because the baton has been passed to us. A lot of us know what that looks like. But to stand up by ourselves means that they're going to handle us when we go downtown. In 2022, was it, Ann? There was a debate with Chairman Mendelson and Mr. Trayon White. Our Healthy DC leader, Overseer Ann Coles, asked, what's going on with the community centers? And you know what?
Yes, he is.
What's going on with the community centers? Where are the programs, right? We take that emotion and we channel it because we have to come out on top. It means nothing. I got some names too, but what I realize is that they're still getting in office, right? So what I understand is that this is a journey. We didn't win those battles, but we got to win this one. Because enough is enough. Okay, we allowed her to become a 3-term mayor. She's nowhere near Mayor Berry. They tear Mayor Berry down, but the things that they're committing, the crimes they're committing against his people today is much worse than anything that they could bring against him. Right? And they know this. But the reality was in 2022, Phil Mendelson told Overseer Cole that there was no funding request from the council member in Ward 8 for the community centers to be funded.
So it's ridiculous when he continues to get in office and continues to be so popular when the very question you ask rests on the heels of all of these so-called elected officials that show up when it's time for you to vote. But then when you need them and when our youth perish, where are they? I saw a tweet, thanks to a dear friend of mine in the room, on social media. Mr. Trayon White, not picking on him, but if they put it out there, we gotta use it because we gotta empower ourselves. We gotta know what we're dealing with, right? He posted that you guys need to pay your rent. Too many people are abusing the ERAC program.
And the
Come
mayor
on,
said,
Come on, Mayor Bear. Come on, Mayor Bowser. Show them what comes next. But just before that, he showed up with a group of young men from Ward 8 with T-shirts representing him, talking about they don't like the union and where are the jobs and things like that. So he's got his feet in both places, which is very dangerous. So what I saw being a DCI, I gotta reach the baby mamas, I gotta reach the big mamas, and I gotta call him out because he is using our brothers on the corner.
yes, he is.
And I know that our brothers on the corner gotta go home and sleep, and they're gonna go home and sleep with. So our brothers will follow us. And so we are the weapon that's needed to change the city around. And so I've been calling on my daughters of the city because we are the anchor. Our men go out, they protect, they earn, but we take care of the communities and the babies. And so I love your question. I hope you stay at the table because we got work to do. You're absolutely right. It's gonna take that village, and the first order of business is to reconnect and put the levels back in place. Our children are very disruptive and disrespectful to our elders. They don't know their history. They don't know what they belong to. Some of us can't go to the block, but many of us that still can must.
Yes.
And that's why we're gonna do this together. Very serious about it. My daughters of the city.
Amen.
All right. Not what they're doing today. So you stay tight. You keep asking that question, as I want you on task forces. I want us all front and center. See, we're not there where it counts.
Yeah.
And we're gonna change that. So thank you for your question. Thank you. Your hands up.
Hi, my name is Boris Key. I'm a native Washingtonian.
Will you do us a
What?
favor, step out? We really want to hear what you're saying. Thank you so much.
I have two questions.
Use the mic.
Where's the mic?
Right up there. The court
If you're willing to walk down, I can meet you halfway. Thank you so much. You come up?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Jabarius Key. I'm a native Washingtonian. I was born in 1955. I lived my childhood in Ward 5, right by Rhode Island Avenue, Easton. Mount Rainier was across the way. Graduated from Kennedy Tech. I've lived in Ward 1, 7, 8. I currently live in Ward 8. A couple minutes walks from the Anacostia Library. I have two questions. One, you said "we" multiple times, and how people could get involved and the structure and so forth. The second question is, the people on the city council make the decisions, and until you get different people on the city council, you're not going to get different decisions.
That's right.
What kind of plans do you have to create an effective political organization, more so on the level of the Panthers, which did wide social education of people, because the people don't understand, and like you said, black people are extremely emotional and people know what buttons to push to get the reaction out of people. What plans do you have to basically ultimately put people on the city council who you don't have to beat over to do what you need to do, but go up there with the purpose to do these specific things? Because until that happens, then we're only reacting to what other people have already decided is going to take place.
I love that question. Ask me again on the number one. When you say the "we," give me the specific of the "we" you're speaking of.
Well, I've heard you say "we," our group. Who is the "we"?
Oh, okay.
And what, I've heard you say task force or whatever. Who is that? How is it structured? How can people get involved, et cetera, et cetera?
I love that question. Thank you. The "we" is healthydcandme.org is our website. I believe it's on the literature you received this evening. healthydcandme.org
is our leadership coalition, and we are a coalition of like-minded, like-mission organizations that have separate organizations, but when we come together because we all believe that we're walking and marching in the same direction. We realize that the need was much greater than any one of our organizations could provide. We realized that there were brains in the city that would help us to be able to bring about the education, the experience, and the proof in order that you guys would be mobilized to come forward and join us. So I love that question. And before I tackle question number 2, I'm going to allow Dr. Chapman to speak.
So I'm so glad that you asked that question. I failed to mention that when I went to medical school, I was trained by 2 psychiatrists, Dr. Elise Galati and Dr. Francis Welsing, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
So I was in the class of 1973. The ISIS papers, she taught us from the manuscript because it actually wasn't published until 1991. So you have to go back and look at some of the symbolism there. But you also have to understand the economics. And she mentioned that. She mentioned the Federal City Council.
That's right.
So
That's huge.
our government is controlled by the businessmen downtown. Can somebody tell me who the chair of the Federal City Council is? Anthony Williams. So if you look at the Washington Post, I got the slide, because I give a lot of talks around, and there's a picture with the mayor and then Anthony Williams is standing behind in Gallery Place, talking about what their plan was for downtown. That plan is the same trickle down that Ronald Reagan pushed. You know, that we'll give the money to the businessmen, and because they do good, that money is going to trickle down to you. That's what they're selling. So if you once you understand that that's where they're coming from, then you can begin to plan how to get around. And everything that they do, places, that look like they're cosmetic solutions, but they're not real economic solutions that bring jobs to the community.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. I just wanted to underscore my friend Perry Red over here when he was explaining to you about taxes, raising sales tax. So when I, first came here, I used to talk about poverty tax because everybody was talking about death taxes. The real death tax in our communities is poverty tax. We pay a higher percentage for everything that we purchase. So a loaf of bread may cost somebody in the wealthier ward 5 minutes to work. In the poorer ward, it costs them an hour. There is no currency. So when we realize that, time is finite. Everything else is finite. Time is finite. So we have to work. Our point something real. You don't have to time. So when your car is wrecked, you don't have to do nothing. When your apartment is robbed, you couldn't pay renter's insurance.
Right.
So you can't replace.
You going through that now?
Well, that's all I'm saying, is that there is a tax on poor people. It's the poverty tax. No one talks about it. And I think the reason no one talks about it is that we have not learned the one trick that the Republicans have learned, that we haven't learned, no matter what you are.
Come on.
They can name it. And we have to discuss it for hours and hours on end. But if you can name it, then you can fix it, because everybody knows what you're talking about. So when you say property tax, we don't have to have a 3-hour conversation. We don't have to have addendums and We don't have to preach over and over again. When I say poverty tax, you say poverty tax applies to who? Say me.
That's right.
So poverty tax is my tax, because rich people don't pay property tax.
That's right. Now let's keep it going. When I say social housing in the Green New House deal, you know they talking about public housing and who they talking to. So that's what it's about. It's about understanding the importance for us coming forward. I love your question, gentlemen leaving the room, but the reality is we came here for action. If you're anything like me and our coalition, members of our coalition, we're tired of meeting. We're ready for action, and we recognize that the leadership isn't going to change, and we realize that we have to be everywhere. And so, those of you who came in this evening, you signed in, I hope you left your email, I hope you left your phone number, because it starts with building a network of folks that will show up. When you look at all of the other issues and other groups and populations that come to the nation's capital for change because they want to see change, they believe that this is where change happens, everyone else is getting their issues heard but us. For some reason, we don't stay together, we don't come together, and we're not teaching our young people to come together. We know wisdom knows, but your legs are going to be a little weary, so you got to bring those youthful legs forward. In order to do that, there's a generational divide we hear about oftentimes in our suicidal workshops, and the reality is that you can be right, and we can keep thin and out, or you can open up, be open-minded, and understand that we must connect with this next generation if we're going to go forward. They're going to inherit everything we're doing. And who would have thought in 2024 that we'd be meeting just as the folks in the civil rights era had to meet? There were people that marched here with no shoes. How far are you willing to go for the freedoms that we're sacrificing? So that's what it's about. And so if you signed in this evening and got an email and give us about 10 more minutes, you're going to hear our proposal of an action plan. And then we're going to invite you to join us, and you will already be a part of the network because we have a way to reach you. The problem is when we reach out, will you show up? Because it's important to show up. Thank you so much. Any more on this side of the room? Okay, I'm going to start right here. Oh, okay. Dr. Chapman?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one more comment. Do you know why the Wizards and the Caps came back to D.C.?
Yeah.
Why?
They never was going to leave.
Because of an 80-year-old senator, black senator in Portsmouth, Virginia, refused to release that money in Virginia.
Oh.
It had nothing to do with Muriel Bowman. It had nothing to do with Muriel. I mean, everybody should know that. So what happened is that he was forced to come back, but she gave him $515 million anyway. He had no place to go. No place to go. That's one example. The other example is what just happened on Tuesday in the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
What happened? Asa Brooks won, and she was outraised 10 to 1. 10 to 1.
$50 million to $7 million.
10 to 1. Yeah. We have the power.
Yeah.
You have the power in the vote. And that's how you beat white supremacy. You have to use your power in the vote.
One more question here.
So just talking about the arena deal, I know that, you know, that Virginia is a right to work state.
Yes, it is.
So right now, the House is like, the House and the Senate is Democratic in Virginia right now. So unions was pushing that if they get that arena deal, they wanted a union deal. And they didn't want to do that union deal. And that's what sealed the deal, because we had the House and the Senate out there, and they pushed it back to D.C. But they want to do a union in D.C. So anytime they spend $5 million, so we looking to get people to work. So please, let's get work.
Dr. Maldron and Mr. Kenny Barnes has a comment as well. Dr. Maldron.
I just have a simple question. I want to ask, where is the church on this? The black church.
I love that question. I love that. There is the black church in all this. Well, I'll tell you one church that stepped up to the plate. Let's give a round of applause to Friendship Baptist Church, who typically charges for events like this, but they said, that Hamilton is for the community. And I want you to know that that's big, because for the 8 years we've been on the ground doing this work, when they realized that I would not be moved, our coalition would not be moved, they started trying to shut down venues that were DC related in order that this message would get out. But silly rabbit, I'm a DC girl. I have no fear. Party didn't sit. Went to the senator in Ward 7, Chuck up at the panorama. I tell this story often because we need these borders to come down. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to be patient as we hear from another legend, Mr. Kenny Barnes.
Thank you to our future mayor. She's our future mayor. But I'll tell you what I wanted to say. Number one, we have an issue in our own community when we don't work well together. We do not work well together. Now, Rhonda is doing all this organizing. There are organizations all over the city that won't talk to her, which is crazy. She's a leader. We need to be with her.
Yes. Yes.
There are people on the stage right now who realize the problem. And let me tell you something else. When you see people, and the cameras are not there, you know they're serious.
All right.
Amen. All right.
We have people right here. Dr. Chapman, the bishop is here.
I'm here.
I know you're here, bishop. But we have people like that are really concerned. And we got another organization. Their partners are with Rhonda. Called Time for Us to Get Involved. We all need to get involved. And we need leaders like Rhonda. And one more thing. Believe it or not, I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. People still laugh at me. Some of you might say, what is the Rotary Club? Okay. It's a bunch of white people with money.
Oh, okay.
They need to be at the table. I represent them. I represent Kamal Ali, Ben Chillibo, and I represent Dr. Chapman, and Bishop, and all that right there, and Rhonda. That's what I want to say. And we need to look at the people. They always got their hands up. Every meeting they go to, rather than discuss issues. Where's my money? Those people, you want to look at sideways. Okay?
All right, man.
That's right. Look at people that are here because we're going to solve the problem.
That's right.
Say, great job, Rhonda.
Thank you.
All right.
Those of you that know Chuck Brown, Mr. Barnes was responsible for making go-go possible in D.C. by the
All right. All right.
We support that our children know their history. Time is upon us, so I'm going to speed this up, but not before I get my ladies involved. And Kenny, thank you so much. We call those folks opportunists, but true DCites know what opportunists look like, and we'll deal with them all when the time comes.
I just want to.
What's your name?
My name is Karen Settles.
Hello,
I'm a
Karen
warrior in the
Yes,
field.
she is a warrior. Yes, she is.
So I want to thank you for talking about the union, and I'm very proud of you.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
I want to say that. I want to thank the first speaker. Can't remember his name. What's your name?
Me? Oh, I'm Terry Ray.
So, Mr. Terry, you spoke about the Housing Trust Fund.
Yes, ma'am.
You spoke about this new proposal that you sent out called House. Is it called House? Heart. So I would like to see the Housing Trust Fund transferred to the Heart.
You need to read the Heart legislation.
So I'm going to let you out. So I went to see Anita Barnes many times about housing. And the last time I went, it dawned upon me to ask her, well, what is the Housing Trust Fund for? And she said, for developers. Then, okay? That was then. Let me just say this. I'll say one more thing. There is something called the Community Benefit Agreement And one first understanding and then agreeing, because I always, those need to be clear. Bottom line, that's our inroad. That's our inroad. When those developers come in our community and disrupt our community, they don't even follow the consumer regulatory abatement laws. So the habitat is being totally riled up, so everybody has roaches. And that's why. But why don't we disrupt that community benefit?
And I'm moving us forward because we've gone too long, but I want you guys to please give Ms. Settles a round of applause. She is a warrior for mental health from ANC over in Ward 7 fighting without ETAP community and chairman of housing, former chairman of housing as well, so she knows what she speaks. Guys, the point is we have some tools amongst us. We've got to come together. First and foremost, is there anybody in this room that did not leave their contact information at the front table? Okay, great, then we're good. We have the network form. You're going to get a follow-up from today's meeting. I want to read 5 things, and I want to let Ms. Barbara Cooper speak really quickly. We have to shut down. The church has been so gracious. So, Ms. Cooper, would you please speak and be brief for us? Thank you.
I'm going to try to keep this brief. First and foremost, I want to say thank you. Thank you, Ron, and I want to thank each and every one of y'all because your first story, when you talked about being locked up, being incarcerated, I've been there and done that. I know what it feels like to go through depression, been there, done that. Sliced my wrist, jumped out of a window, all because of what I'm going through in my life. See, if you can't tell your story and tell the truth about your story, then ain't no use telling it at all. Because what we're here for is to help one another. See, my thing is, we all sit back and we complain. We got to stop complaining and we got to fight for one another. If you walk down the street and you see your fellow man laying down, help him up, pick him up, stop criticizing. I'm going to say this, Ron, and I'm going to keep it very, very short. I'm going through a lot, and it's a lot of us that's going through a lot, but when you have a baby that wakes up in the morning and you don't we're not living right. I wasn't raised like that. So my thing is, I'm a country girl. I wasn't used to hot water, cutting it on with the faucet. I had to go outside to get it. I wasn't used to having heat in the house. I had to go outside to get my wood. So now I'm up here, I'm thinking I'm living better, but it's the same thing. I'm getting treated the same way. With that, y'all, we got to learn how to help one another. And Rhonda, I appreciate you. I love you from the bottom of my heart. Everything you do, I know is sincere. You know, and we got to realize, Marion Bowser, sorry, Marion, God bless you. Marion Bowser is not for us.
No, she is
If we don't see it by now, we'll never see it.
Yeah.
We don't have Trayvon White. It's not for us.
No,
if you don't see it, you'll never see it. See, because one thing that I know, I got a God that sits high and look low. You understand? With that, I love y'all. We got to pull together.
That's right, all right. Give everyone a round of applause. Give yourselves a round of applause as we make our way out of it. My heartfelt thank goes to the Coalition of Advisors and our community partners, Mr. Kunta Bedney of the Union, which you'll hear more from. Our dear Dr. Chapman, if you guys want to hear more about Dr. Chapman, you can go to healthydcandme.org. There's an archives page where we park a lot of his information. And Miss Marcel Reed, if you want to join us on the Hill in July, the last Friday in July, we're going to be a part of the panel. I'll be forming it. So guys, we have our action plan on the second to last page, mobilization demonstration. My question to everyone as you walk out of this room, are we ready to start shutting down these bridges and landmarks? Are we ready to start hosting sit-ins at the Wilson Building in Barry Congress? I have already started the charge at the United Nations. I don't understand why DC has a designation for being a human rights city. You're feeling like your rights are violated. We need to understand what the protocol for them to be reinvestigated. It's time for us to make trouble on a larger scale. I know from which I speak. Go to healthydcandme.org. Check out the Woodbury Project page. There is no reason to keep doing the same thing and getting the same results. We can take it to the next level. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
2 words, no more. The standards are too low. All right, there's something called a community report card. You have it on your paperwork. You didn't get to speak this evening, no problem. You can go to the community report card. We are the network. Look around, look around, look around. You got to go vote. Some of them may get by us. Some of them may get by us, but don't you fret. We're coming down this lane and we're going to clean house. We didn't get here overnight and it's going to take us some work. So some of them may get by us. But remember, moving forward, we set the standard. So when that bat goes in the sky, I want to hear from you. And the question is, will you show up? So the HEART Act, it'll be emailed to everyone. First source law being enforced, we're going to send you language. The language that went out to the United Nations, we're going to be sending language around for you to sign. We're asking for the protocols so we know what the numbers need to look like. We need to start making them as uncomfortable as they've allowed your living to be. Are you with me? All righty. Thank you guys so much. This concludes the Healthy DCME Leadership, Civil, and Human Rights Town Hall. Remember, you matter. Mental health matters. Your mental well-being matters.